There you go.
Thank you. All right. Hey, seeing us live and then also who is watching this on demand. Today, we're going to be launching around marketing operation predictions here in this year. So, my name is Marcos Duran. I'm leaders at the Austin Pardot user group. And today we have a treat for you. We're going to go ahead and have panel all stars joining us today from across the US. And then I'll give them to introduce themselves in a second. But uh, feel free to follow us on Twitter. Here's our handle for any additional or just part at Salesforce news here in the Austin user group. So if you are joining us, this is probably something that is familiar to you. You've seen it on Twitter or LinkedIn. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to themselves, and let's go ahead and get started with Jen.
Yeah, perfect. My name is Jen Kazin. I'm the Twin Cities Pardot user group leader, and I'm an independent Pardot consultant. And so I work in Pardot. I was going to say 24/7, but I do actually sleep at night. But I'm in Pardot all the time because I do wake up thinking about things with Pardot. I think about Pardot when I'm driving. So I've got Pardot on my mind a lot. But thank you for having me, Marcos. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Let's go ahead and go over to Dan.
Yeah. So I'm Dan Umbro. I'm the co-leader of the New Hampshire Pardot user group, and I work at a Fishnet Media out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, as a marketing automation solution architect. My role there consists of Pardot, Salesforce, SEO, social marketing. Whatever. I'm like a Swiss Army knife. Whatever you have me doing, or whatever you need me to do, I'll do. I just want to comment on the profile picture. I love that you chose that. Was when I sat on the editorial board for the Portsmouth Herald, and we had all the presidential candidates come in. So I got to meet a bunch of different people, including our president. So it's cool.
I will comment that this by no means reflects Dan's on anything in the current world. I literally just grabbed this picture from his Twitter account, so just want to make that call out. We're not trying to make a statement here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Appreciate it.
All right, Carla, do you mind kicking us off too?
Yeah, so I didn't know we were supposed to provide fun pictures. If I had known, I would have.
Yeah, I could have done better, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, oh, I
went,
didn't provide anything.
I actually went to the Super Bowl this year, so it was very, very fun. I actually worked it because my daughter's cheer, she does all-star cheerleading, and they did a fundraiser, so they made parents work, and I was able to attend it. But I had a really fun picture with that. So Marcus, let me know. I'll send you that.
We'll do a follow-up. We'll do a part 2.
I'm Carla Vance, Marketing Operations Manager at Lightbox. I work heavily within the Salesforce and Pardot universe. I'm also the community group leader for the Irvine Pardot user group. And really, I'm so passionate about the whole Salesforce ecosystem. I've worked with Pardot for many, many years, maybe 8 years now. And I think that, what else can I say? Martech. So a lot of the things that I do is connecting different systems, making sure that the flows are there, creating those beautiful dashboards, creating those beautiful automation rules. I utilize it to do a lot of our cleanup work. Exciting stuff, but yes, all kind of encompasses the marketing operations side. So fun stuff there.
Thank you, Carla. And I think if I'm not mistaken, all 3 of you are also marketing champions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I'm new. I don't know if people were from the 2020, but I'm a new marketing champion for 2021.
Got it. So I just wanted to make that call out too, because not only is this everybody on this panel, um, quite well known for individually in their organizations, right, and all the work that they put at their companies, but also locally in their community, and then also globally recognized by Salesforce as being, if there was um, a way to call out a marketing cloud or a Pardot influencer, these are three people that are causing waves in the ecosystem. So for everybody that's joining us, feel free to use the chat feature on the left side or right side of your screens for any questions, and Laura and Michelle will help us sort through those. If I see anything that needs to be called out, we'll go ahead and stop and pause. But again, today we're just going to have a conversation. We have a couple of uh, questions that were input when you guys were registering. So we're going to go through some of those, and then we have some questions that we put together for the team as well. So let's just go ahead and dive in. Feel free to grab Coke, a drink of choice or whatever, and we're going to go ahead and have some fun with this. So um, the big question just before we get started here is, what are those predictions for 2022? And some people may be thinking, well, you know that's a cool topic, but what are you predicting if we're already in 22? We're like about to go into quarter two, right, of this year. So um I think that what we're going to be going through this presentation, we're going to be covering a lot of topics, right? Some a little bit more professional development, some more in the landscape of things. Um, but I think something that's important is that, sure, we may already be in 2022, but being in specifically in the industry that we're in, right? You can call that marketing technology, marketing software, marketing operations. A lot of that intersects with one another, and it changes, right? We have seen brands dramatically increase in years, months. We have seen also brands shift focus in a matter of days or weeks. So I think it's still relevant. And so, with that being said, I wanted to. This question is going to be for you, Jen. So being, owner of your own consultancy and things like that, I think you're, from everyone in the panel, you're kind of like positioned to say, both as an individual contributor, but also as leadership, right? What are some things, or what is the one thing from last year that you had on your vision board when it comes to, the goals for the organization, what you wanted to do with Salesforce and Pardot, or maybe some of your customers that you just didn't quite get to, in 2021? You're on mute.
Jen, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
I thought I was.
Thank you. Sorry, I had a dog.
I thought I couldn't hear anybody, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you. No, I'm
We
laughing that you gave me this question because I'm not sure. I wasn't sure people wanted to hear about my business. I think it was easier when I was working at a company, like I was in the seat of a marketer, because I probably could have had a dozen things to talk about. So are you looking at? It is hard for me to talk about my clients because everyone's got a different situation. Are you specifically asking about like my business, Green Key?
I think that's a angle that we don't get to hear a lot from. So if you feel comfortable sharing that, that'd be great. If not, I think you can pick a client. You don't have to disclose who they
Oh,
are, and
no,
just
yeah.
say,
Okay. Well,
yeah,
I was just making sure because I wasn't sure that would be what you wanted to hear, but sure.
yeah.
I was literally thinking, oh, that's the one I'll pass on. And you're like, this one's for you, Jen. I was like, oh, great.
Well, we can skip. I'll give everybody
No.
one skip. So
Yeah, okay. No, it's fine. Okay, so one thing that I am planning to do is, and I actually will planning to execute this in April, but you know, helping people more. I think that when office hours went away, I don't know about anybody else, but I don't know if I would have been able to make the jump as a consultant, because there was so much I didn't know, and I used to like have them on speed dial, and then they just went away, and you had to have premier support. So where I'm going with this is I think there is still a very important need for office hours. And so I thought about it in 2021. I didn't do anything more with it, but I'm planning to offer office hours on a weekly basis coming, starting about in April 2022. So next month. So it's
Yeah.
still been something I'm working on. And, it is hard because I've kind of had a busy consulting stretch, just busy with work when you have a one-man show, but that is something I'm truly looking forward to doing.
That sounds awesome. And you can use promo code Austin User Group to get 10% off. Just kidding. That's awesome. I agree. I think there's increasing struggles with bandwidth. And even if you do have Premier support or one of those additional packages, getting an answer in a timely fashion, right, can be difficult. And also, understandably so, there's different levels of skill sets and knowledge even amongst teams in our organizations, let alone the different teams that help us out on the Salesforce customer service side. So um, cool, looking forward to that announcement. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yep.
All right, so this one I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to whoever wants to answer it, but what is something that you're the most excited about in regards to Pardot? So that can be a feature that maybe you haven't used. That could be a new way of using Pardot, maybe for recruiting or other use cases that you haven't um, seen as much of or used. Maybe that involves finally getting Pardot to talk to a different platform, right? So Carla, you were mentioning you do a lot of that. So I don't know, opening it up to whoever wants to take this one.
Sure, I can take it. So right now, I'm excited about workflows with Zoom Info. So if anyone knows, like Zoom Info now has workflows capabilities, and then you can connect them with Salesforce or Pardot. I recommend them going to Pardot because then I'm thinking of utilizing them into putting them into lists, then putting them into engagement campaigns, and kind of setting up those types of things because you can pull from exactly what types of segments you're going after, any intent data. If you have websites installed onto your uh, web pages, and if you have multiple web pages, you could do those types of rules and create workflows. So that is like a connector within, Pardot and Zoom Info that I'm pretty excited about utilizing this year. Another thing that I'm excited about is the Pardot Lightning landing pages. I haven't really played with it yet, but I'm excited to get to know about it and like actually start building things in the Pardot Lightning landing pages. Because if you're familiar with the classic landing pages, it's not too fun, right? You really need to know all the codings and the scripting, the backend to really make those landing pages look cool. So a lot of people are using like Unbounced or Instapage to like really offset that experience. It hasn't really been a great experience with the Pardot landing pages. So the drag and drop feature I think will change with that. I can't wait to play around with it.
I'll piggyback off that. So uh, being in our distinctive roles, you're always learning, right? Like it's like almost impossible to just stick to what you already know and not learn something or turn a new rock, even looking at the same feature and applying it in a different way. Something that I'm probably late to the party, but I just historically, and I don't know how I would measure this, but historically, I just haven't had a lot of customers that um, are Microsoft shops, right? So they still have Salesforce and Pardot, but like use Outlook and other things like that for their operations. I tend to work with people or with organizations historically that are more like Gmail houses, right? So something that I recently uncovered in one of my journeys is that you're a Microsoft shop, a lot of the times with your subscription, you have access to Power Automate. And so this is very similar to like a Zapier, right? It doesn't have all the integrations, right? So we'll stop there, but it talks to Salesforce. And we know that if we can get it to talk to Salesforce, we can do anything with it, right? So the cool thing about it is like, I mean, you can use like Teams to set up like internal webinar forms, and then use this Power Automate piece to then create workflows, kind of like what you're saying with other webinar tools or things that don't normally integrate. So it just a lot of times when I find myself in these discussions with the clients, it's like, well, what webinar tool do you have? Does it integrate natively with Pardot, yes or no? Right. And then we end up getting stuck because it doesn't, or, have to find another way of doing it. So that was just something like in terms of putting like the Lego blocks together, that a lot of times the organizations that you're working with already have something, but they themselves don't know that they have it. So just, leveraging and really like getting in touch with like their IT teams, or even them just taking it out for a spin and doing a simple trial. Um, Similar to you, Carla, just kind of gets me excited about like the new possibilities, because there's a lot of things that, you know when it comes to like Pardot and Salesforce, when you're dealing with users, do you create leads for them? Do you create contacts, like those things? A lot of times you don't want to do that, but that's kind of what we've been forced to do in a way. So with these other tools, like keeping that data siloed, not even in Salesforce, but if you wanted to bring it into Salesforce, you could, um, or run some other automation. So thank you for sharing. Um, Anybody else want to take this question first? Ben, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I can jump in here. Um, so I'll go a little different route, but with the Salesforce Idea Exchange, or the exchange, excuse me, I was scrolling through it the other day, and I was getting excited about the different possibilities with some of the ideas that had been one of them was in development. Another one that I liked was had a ton of votes, and it looked like it potentially could get into development. But many of the requests were for common deficiencies that I've seen in my day to day working with Pardot, and I can mention a few that stick out. The custom email notification. So multiple times I've had clients that we work with that want to put customize the email subject line, or the notification, like the content of the email notification when um, for the completion actions of notifying a user or assigning a prospect. One idea that was in development that looked really cool was the conditional completion actions. And I'm sure people on this call definitely have some strong opinions towards that. Hopefully, good towards being able to automate based off of different values that are submitted directly as a completion action, as opposed to an automation rule or utilizing an engagement studio program. And then the other one that I was excited for, me personally, it's probably not as much for others, but the custom objects fields as email tags. So, um, you know, not to get too far into the weeds, but one of the, you know, um, when you sync custom objects to Pardot from Salesforce, one of the fallbacks is that you can't use the synced fields in an email. So similar to adding somebody's first name as a tag in an email, you couldn't add information from the an email. So that to me seemed like a great opportunity to expand upon a feature and make it even better.
I ran into that same scenario when we were working with a great organization, that nonprofit that wanted to do some stuff around like Giving Tuesday, right? I remember each year we would work with them, and so it was hard because they already have the data, right? it's there, but you couldn't access it. And you had to find this like elaborate ways to like push it to another field, so then it could be mapped and it could be put into a token right on the contact level or whatever. And so I think for a lot of customers who don't have the budget, um, to do to spend extra time and resources, right, doing those turnarounds, I think to your point, Dan, I think it'll be nicely received news when that comes into fruition. So I'm looking forward to that too. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Let's go to the next one. So, um, what are you most excited for with your marketing plans this year? So, Carla, I'm gonna shoot this question over to you because I think you're in a good position to make this call here.
So, well, I think I'm excited about, we went through a rebranding project and we're launching that. So all the messaging, all the branding, everything of that it reflects in our marketing plans. So it's a whole new look and feel. We are launching a new website, new branding. We're unifying, 5 different business units in one, at least for my org, to one voice. So that's really, really exciting. We've also have a very exciting paid strategy in place, and I think I can talk about it in I think of the next question. But I'm utilizing some cool automations using UTM parameters to like make those completion actions and put them into the right campaigns, and I think that's really exciting for this year.
Got it. That's awesome. Anybody else wants to share some news? Nope. Okay. So this is a question that we often see in like dreaming events or other presentations when we do get a little spot, right, to talk about Pardot at the different Salesforce events. And so the question is, from your experience with working with different clients, right, what are some features that have either been have been around for a long time or are fairly new, that people are just haven't adopted? And if I don't know if you have a tip here or there or trick to kind of get people looking at this feature that you may describe, um, feel free to jump in.
Can I take this one, Marcos?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what you guys have seen, and this is not newer. That's why it was making me think. But then he opened the door for other features that are older, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it. But I don't see anybody using the preference page correctly. Like none, zero. And I'm like, if I work with 50 clients at different companies in a year, I've had one use it correctly. They don't know how to use the lists. They set they all, if they have one, they set it up and they don't use the lists, or they don't know how to set it up, or they create the list but they don't use the lists. They don't know how to segment off the lists. I'm literally was thinking just last week, I'm like, I need to go on like a evangelical campaign of just everybody needs to do this because nobody's doing it right. What have you seen, Dan, or Carla? Or Dan? I know you probably consult. You see more.
Yeah, I'm nodding my head yes, because it's a conversation internally that we have a lot of times when we're working with clients. Setting up a preference center is one of the things we would do with clients when we take them on, and whether or when we're assisting with sending emails, whether it's in Pardot or SendGrid or Mailchimp, right? We say, well, how are you emailing your clients? So how are you segmenting your audiences? And then if it's just we blast everybody everything, right? Like obviously there's some work you can do there, right? I see Marcos putting his hands over his eyes. But it really comes down to the fact that if you're first of all, you need to offer the preference center, and then second of all, the list that you maintain there, whether you're actually utilizing them for email content or not, was one of the things that I was nodding my head yes as you were going.
Nobody does that.
Yeah.
I have one, but we don't use well, you use those lists. Those are your foundational lists.
Right.
What do you mean? Yeah, that
Yeah.
conversation over and over again.
Yeah.
So I one of my close colleagues and popular evangelical on consent, Mike Cruiser, right, has, to paraphrase, right, it's essentially like, do you guys feel that the non-using of the email preferences page is due to a lack of caring about it, or is it more that we need to almost like revisit that experience as both companies and consumers of, you know marketing communications? Because I feel like, if you talk to somebody about email preferences and they're like, oh, click the link on the footer, it takes you, there's check boxes, and you just check what you want or you unsubscribe. Do we feel like maybe that experience is, with all the changes in consent management and policies around the world and things like that, do we feel like maybe that experience needs to be updated and make it more, kind of like what people have done with cookie consent, more on your face, and say like, this is what either we're opting you into or what you opted into, and like we need to remind you of that each time that you're in here. Like, to me, a poster child has been MailChimp for a while. Like, MailChimp would just straight up tell you when you subscribed, right? And you can customize that to other stuff, like maybe putting where you subscribed or whatever. But what are some thoughts there, on that email preferences experience? Like, do we think it's just good and people are just not giving it enough time, or do we think like that whole experience needs to be revisited and kind of like worked on to bring it to the next, to this century?
I'll just say very quickly, I don't even see what is available today being used correctly, and the
Okay.
disconnect is massive. Like,
Yeah.
they don't understand it, and I'm with you. I'd love to take it to another level, but like, they have a preference page, but when they send an email, even if it's a segmented email, they just spin up a new dynamic list and send it out. They're not using their lists, or that's the issue I see. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
Yeah. I think just as, a marketer in general, things are through the cracks, and that's, whether we deem it important or not. I think, um, one of the things that we do every time we send out an email is make sure there's a text version that's, somewhat formatted in case, somebody's using a screen reader or has, image. And it's so easy to just not do that, just because you have a ton of work and you want to get it done, or you forgot. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's just taking it's a tough question. I don't know how to solve it, but I think it's taking the time to learn and to do things the right way, I guess. Not to put like um, a negative spin on it, but it things take time, and to do things the right way, you gotta iterate your process and improve upon it, and then eventually someday you'll get it right, or
Yeah,
better than it was before.
yeah, that I agree with that. Okay. Does anybody have another maybe feature that they want to share that they're excited about and they don't see enough people using it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The one that, oh, go ahead, Dan.
Well, you can go, Carla. I was just talking. You're good.
Oh, so the one that I'm excited about is the Google Analytics connector. So with the Google Analytics connector, also you can have a lot of the data pushed through, and I like also there's a Google Analytics section on each prospect data, and then you can set automation rules on the Google Analytics UTM parameters. And I think that is very underutilized, and it's such an opportunity point to like create those automation rules, add them to the different campaigns, and really track like the customer journey from that. So like that's like a small plug to utilize them because they're there. You could create automation rules on Google Analytics parameters. So
Hey, Carla, I want to share in your excitement. But one challenge I have seen with that is that's only first touch. And so then if it's not your first touch and you're emailing this person on a regular basis, like, have you had better success, or is there, maybe I'm missing something?
So it doesn't it overwrite the Google Analytics parameters? I'm talking about like the one at the very bottom, the actual
the one that's built in. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to double check with that one because it's brand new. Like I've just enabled it and I'm excited about it.
Oh, got it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I haven't run into a
Yeah,
lot
Jen
of
and I know
those.
something you don't.
No, I
So
thought maybe I missed something. So I was like, cool. I'm literally like starting to type in. I'm like, okay, let me know.
Yeah.
is there an upgrade, right? I don't think I think the answer is no, Jen. I think you know something that Carla doesn't know yet. But I want to take this moment to actually plug our next session. So I was gonna leave this until the end, but because there is so to your point, Carla, it's not utilized, and when it is, it's sometimes not utilized 100%. So um the Austin user group in next month on April, we will be hosting um Sarah Clove, who is the director of marketing at Sir Content, and she's going to be walking us through how to use Google Analytics and to how to connect Google Ads to what are some of the different paths that you could take, and different people like Jenna Mobley, who's also an influencer for years. I think Dan, I think your organization has also blogged about different things on with Google Analytics and like those connectors and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways of tackling the problem of collecting not only um first touch but then like last touch, or like whichever touch is the most recent, or both. And so different people tackle it a little bit different. So yeah, we're looking forward to that conversation with Sarah Kay, uh to just take us what are the paths, and then she'll be showing us not all of it, but some of the data that we collect, just as the organization insert content, just so you can see a real life like dashboard and pictures, and see what, even for us, what are the gaps, how are we tackling those gaps, and things like that, which I feel a lot of times we don't get to see, right? Because a lot of people don't want to share their data, which I understand why. So we'll see how much she's willing to share, and showcase, but we'll be having that topic in April, so feel free to join us.
I just to jump in or add a little piece here.
Yeah.
I think attribution tracking, specifically with UTM parameters or campaign attribution, is probably the number one thing that any client I've ever worked with wants to nail down and hone in on. And if you can do that for them, then you've made a friend in that organization, or a couple. And just one quick plug too. I know you said for the user group next meeting you're going over a similar topic. We recently used a WordPress plugin called I believe it was UTM Grabber, and basically it's a way to store UTM value in a separate cookie that you could then map
Okay.
to a custom field. So, I don't want to steal the thunder, but there's, just
No,
as
no,
a
no.
preface, or whether it's a different solution or not, but um, there are, workarounds and ways to solve, attribution. It's just, it definitely takes a lot of legwork, but once you get it right, it's definitely nirvana, and you can definitely work off other Pardot automations.
Yeah, and I I'll search for it and see if I can find it. I don't remember if UTM Grabber, like you said, or Helper, but one of those two
Yeah.
we've also used with one of our customers. um and right now, well, me personally have used it with one of my customers, and we're going through trial runs right now to just make sure. So we have two different ways of capturing them. Want to see which one's the more reliable, right? Because you always want to have a backup just in case something isn't set up right or something like that. But thank you, Dan. That was good. And again, I
Yeah.
think it's, you Tim Graver from what Dan said, and we'll share that with everybody as well. So thanks.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, let me go. So we have about 20 minutes left, and we have a couple of questions. So this one, earlier I mentioned that one of the goals for this panel, and hopefully more to come, is that we wanted to bring in new voices, underrepresented voices, different, right, to some of this panels, and also different conversations that we'll be having throughout this year. So this one, I would like Carla and or Jen to call out, because I think um, you know, being a woman in marketing and in tech specifically has this different set of challenges. You don't have to speak on those, but I just think this is a good time um, to hear that perspective, because we don't, again, have those conversations, broadly. And so I think if one of you could talk on those, or any other, honestly, problem that you've run in, in your careers, in marketing operations, or being an administrative part at Salesforce, things like that.
Carla, why don't you go first?
Okay. As far it's not necessarily a problem, but
Okay.
I think that it, as a marketing ops professional and someone in MarTech, someone, dealing with process and all of that, you're naturally going to be a leader in project management, right? So what I see happen in a lot of organizations is marketing operations leaders really pulled into different types of projects, and sometimes projects that are not related to marketing. So I've taken on projects, dealing with e-commerce sites and, different types of really projects that were outside of really my realm of, marketing operations. But I take it as a positive thing. They trust in me. They trust in my leadership skills. They trust in my project management skills. They trust that I'm going to learn the platform and really make it work. Put a team together, put a budget together, put everything kind of so that we can make it successful. So I know sometimes it's more work, and especially sometimes I don't know if it's gender specific, but there are a lot of things outside of marketing operations that sometimes marketing operations does, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll speak to something more, I'd say, generic. Some of the challenges, and this is not as a consultant, this was when I was working in-house. There was always challenges between sales and marketing, right? Marketing is, with a common goal, but depending on how that company is structured, sometimes you have that animosity. And one quick story I had was, I thought a pretty good relationship with a sales manager. We had initiatives, I was in marketing, so I kind of like, here's the plan. We had a marketing strategy. We were going to work with sales, and we had upper management involved. And fast forward, as we kind of kicked off the campaign, what happened was that this was a sales manager. His star salesperson wasn't hitting the numbers. He wasn't doing what we laid out, right? He was too cool to do whatever marketing was proposing. And the problem is that the email went out to upper management, and he was showed at the bottom. So the sales manager called me and said, like, we need to do something about this, kind of wink, wink. We got to fix this, And I'm like, I don't know what you mean. He's literally not doing it. Like, we all agreed to this. He signed the paperwork. And basically he wanted me to falsify his numbers that went out in the email. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I can't. I was like, no, I can't do that. It's not fair to the people who are doing it. In short, the call ended, and he basically wouldn't talk to me for like 1 month. Like, he wouldn't respond to emails. He wouldn't pick up the phone. I mean, I got excommunicated. I wasn't invited to happy hour. I mean, it was like, and it's hard because I'm like, I'm doing my job. And then of course, when I reported up to my manager, she was like, well, she didn't want to rock the boat, right? Because she had a pretty good relationship, so she didn't want it. I mean, I remember thinking, should I call the corporate ethics hotline? Like he's telling me to lie. I didn't do that because it's not it wasn't. We were talking about a sales number. It wasn't like anything legal. Like there was no money involved or anything like that. But I just wanted to highlight is not that this example happened exactly like this, but problems with sales and marketing. And it does get hard to navigate. And sometimes you do find yourself in a tight spot. And the problems are I didn't have any lifeline. No matter where I turned, I either got a cold shoulder or people said, just don't worry about it, ignore it. And I'm like, well, it's hard. So I'm just kind of acknowledging for anyone out there, when you're in marketing, it is hard sometimes. And I'd love to tell you it had a happy ending. I ended up just kind of spinning out and doing something different shortly after. So it worked out for me to kind of just get away from this person. But I think it would have been a tough road going forward nonetheless.
Wow. Yeah. What toxic work environment.
Yeah, it's tough. I can jump in with one too.
Sure.
So I often have trouble communicating technical considerations before and after delivering a solution with Pardot. And what I mean by that is, despite training sessions and or documentation, sometimes there's just a knowledge gap that we as experts, we spend the time learning and understanding sometimes complex functionality, right? So a lot of the stuff we work with isn't even considerations for business units or definitions for the different metrics in B2B marketing analytics. We know this because this is what we do, but translating those to my clients can be cumbersome sometimes. And I think that's common, and I think that's part of the job. And I've embraced it because it's a challenge to share the knowledge I've gathered through the years, and hopefully make help my clients learn and grow with Pardot themselves, so they can learn how to fully maximize the tool. And oftentimes too, it can be difficult when if you're dealing with an executive who maybe might not have the time to understand and do these things because they got more important stuff to do, and that's why they hired us. So oftentimes you don't even have the opportunity to fully define and communicate those things.
And sometimes you just have to be patient, right? And maybe
Yeah.
petition to get to
Yeah.
the point of mutual understanding. Sometimes that's what it takes. So yeah. No, those
So
are great points. Go ahead.
Marcos and Dan, what I've been utilizing a lot of the times is creating Loom videos. So I create Loom videos of going over certain things because it's the same type of questions that you get asked. And even how do you read these reporting, even if it's laid out in a beautiful dynamic dashboards and with visualization, I think it's still helpful to go over them and what you really need to look for, because sometimes we're used to seeing the data and understanding those numbers and what it should look like, but I think maybe not everyone clearly understands it, even if it's shown in a visual way. So just having those videos to explain to people what they need to look after, what they need to look for, how to work the different dynamic filters, what happens, etc. I think that's helpful, and that's benefited me to just keep a video recording of those types of things.
Good idea. Thank you. I'll probably have to try and incorporate something along those lines to help make my life easier.
Yeah, I like to do those for processes. So if I don't have time to do a checklist or something like that, this is literally let me take you through a journey through Pardot, and this is the things that I need you to hit each time. to make sure like your email campaign is, has everything that it needs, or that your automation rule is actually finding the people that you need, or something like that. So that's great. And then of course you can repurpose it multiple times on things like blogs, and even internally as well. So those are great advice, Carla. Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
oh, and one more thing, if I
Sure.
can. So I think as marketing ops professionals, in the marketing world, we're big documenters, right? With like standard operating procedures, making sure that we can replicate all of our stuff. So sometimes like that document can be really long and daunting to some people, but I still like to have everything documented because that is so transferable. And what I have gotten feedback from the team is like, can you make a video? So it's like, okay, but I always think that it's so valuable to still have things in writing because people retain information differently. So yeah, it's just knowing your customer, knowing your audience, and kind of, striving for success. People just learn differently.
Yeah, I agree. Um, we have three more questions. What I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna jump into the big one, which is this one. What are your predictions for the hot marketing topics of 2022? So last year and the year before that, conversational marketing, right, was the big buzzword. Account-based marketing, another big buzzword. AI, right, and then Einstein associated with that within the Salesforce ecosystem. Um, we've seen a lot of acquisitions of like other tools and things like that by the Salesforce mothership, right? What are some things that are on y'all's minds, right? As maybe not brand new topics, but topics that you feel like are gonna continue to be hot, or something that maybe you're seeing in your market with your customers, um, grow in a little bit more popularity. O- you know, open up to anybody, because I think this is
Yeah.
one of the main ones that a lot of people came here for.
Yeah.
Go Dan.
I can kick us off here. So, first thing I would just say is I see a lot of you know marketing teams that we work with still pay attention to foundational marketing strategies. That's their main concern. AI and conversational marketing are certainly things that we've done with clients, but I think the meat of what people want to do is they want good SEO, they want to have content marketing strategies, and they want to have beautiful emails that convert, and nice websites, right? But to answer the actual question, right, two areas where I hear a ton of buzz right now are podcasting, and so transferring your digital content into audio content, and then millions of people listen to podcasts every day. There's a great opportunity to whether it's branded content or an ad, or guest appearances, any number of ways to get in front of people's eye or ears, I would say, to promote your brand or your company. And the other area, which was probably a little bit more unfamiliar and definitely new this year, would be your Web 3.0 NFT slash metaverse type marketing opportunities. And I think it's so new to a lot of people that they just don't even know where to begin. But if you look around and do a little bit of research, there's major companies, CVS, Nike, um, you know, FC Barcelona soccer team is building a stadium in a metaverse. And do I know exactly what that means today? Probably not, but lots of big brands are making investments into this area. And I don't think your mom and pop shop, that's going to be their channel to sell more widgets or whatever. But I think it's an opportunity for some of the larger brands to potentially dig their teeth into it, and become quote unquote trailblazers with new technologies.
That's a good one for sure. The metaverse. Um,
Yeah. You heard it first.
Dan claims it.
That's a good one. I completely probably unrelated, but maybe it was a rumor, or maybe somebody was making a joke. But didn't I see like a currency cloud like coming around? So like for people that wanted to manage like crypto and like those types of.
I'm not
Oh.
sure. I know that Salesforce a couple years back, I think it was when I was at Dreamforce, they made there was some sort of blockchain technology that they were promoting, but it wasn't specific to cryptocurrencies, but it was specific to the way the information is exchanged. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of time before these big brands, start adopting this technology because it's clearly not going anywhere, and it's there's big opportunity there.
Gotcha. Thank you, Dan.
Sure.
I can comment. I sometimes hesitate whether it's like I said, trends take time, whether it all happened within 2022. But I think more texting, engaging with texting is becoming going to be more prevalent. I mean, I see it not just Pardot, but as a consumer. I mean, I find a recipe. Guess what? I can text the ingredients to myself. Do you know what I mean? I would say there's more opportunities to text to reach out to people. And I attended a webinar probably about a couple months ago. And what opened my eyes is because like I always think of text as, I have a sale, click here, do this now, which, see in e-commerce. And so that always turns me off with B2B. But a company was using it very successfully. And they're like, it's just how they talk to people. They're like, you got to, young people text each other. And so that's the next way to have that conversation. And like they had an example of a jewelry store and how they're like, they plant that seed, but then they're like, hey, they send the text to them saying, hey, your jewelry's in, right? That transactional operation, it's not happening in an email. They're texting that. Would you like to hear, to see the store options for a private appointment? They text that. They're not emailing that kind of thing. I think that's going to be more that's going to happen. And like I said, the more I look for it, the more I see it. My last point is this: I think I was changing a hotel, and they literally said, "Would you like to text? Would you like us to text you so you can have a conversation with a live person?" Right. So again, I just keep seeing that, and I think that is a trend that will continue.
I want to add to that. So I think, COVID, a lot of people have, you know, working from home and things like that. Something that I've seen in more promotion on like the mental health, like services. A lot of this is for, and there's always been like suicide prevention hotlines and things like that. But like as we get into this topic of mental health, like to your point, Jen, a lot more video conferencing, a lot more texting, right? Where you're closer to the person, right? Instead of driving or going to an appointment, things like that. I was thinking maybe it it's interesting that you mentioned like using more texting. So like over the holiday time frame, in December, I went ahead and traveled to Mexico, where my partner's at, and his family's there. And something that I saw, we went to a dentist, we went to a couple of like farmer markets, but also like actual supermarkets. And something that I was seeing is that, to your point, and I thought it was really clever, is like a lot of people in the part of Mexico we were from, they're not in the city. They're in small towns, right? And specific states in Mexico make up small towns. There's like one or two big hubs. But what we're seeing is a lot of them have adopted WhatsApp as the application for a couple of reasons. One, nobody has internet, or a lot of people in Mexico still don't have access to internet. But when you get close to that Wi-Fi, you can connect, and you're not using um, your own like data. You're using Wi-Fi, and so it makes it, when people are in this public spaces, it makes it more manageable for the consumer to be able to make it a bi-directional like conversation instead of just like a push notification, right? And yeah, you just see this like schools and like other things like involving parents and like and whatnot through WhatsApp, through text message. And this isn't like an emerging market or anything by any means, but I think also like they know their audience. A lot of people don't have computers, they still don't have internet, they're not going to go and check, right, that, but they still need to reach them. And I think that's also I think people are becoming desensitized to being like on social media and things like that, just because of COVID, like having on your, I mean, we were already on our phones 24/7. Now we're really on our phones 24/7 because like we're working from them or we're at home or whatever. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Carla, did you want to bring us home with maybe some commentary here?
So, a couple things. I haven't tried the Slack integration, but I'm excited about that. Predictions, it's not necessarily new, but I think that we as marketers need to be customer centric in our messaging, need to be personalized in our messaging. I think that now our consumers and our customers expect that of us. So that is a trend I think that will continue for 2022. Yeah, and also demand gen, big buzz nowadays. And what is with demand gen? Driving with the content, SEO. I think Dan kind of hit to that, right? Driving those people to your website. I think it's going to be really big for 2022, SEO and content. Demand gen's a big buzzword.
So I guess to summarize, there's a lot of buzzwords and they come and they go and they morph and they change and things like that. But really, it sounds like most of the people that we're working with on a day-to-day basis are still very much focused on the core, making sure I drive traffic to the website through SEO, making sure that my content is good, right? And I mean, if I were to put a name on it, I want content like HubSpot, right? Like good, engaging content, right? Um, and when there's budget, we can look at AI and this other things, but really to get the business going, you need that traffic, you need to convert. Once people get there, you need to give them something to come back for. um so those are good. Thank you very much for those comments. I have one last thing, and I'll actually answer this one. So one of again, some of these questions were from the people that register. Some of them, we put together. This one was one that was submitted by one of our viewers. Uh, for those who want to learn Pardot, right? Like this person is in the position where they're very junior, or they're thinking about switching into something in Martech. Where do you suggest that they go? So obviously, I'm gonna go ahead and plug in your website, Jen, because I think especially for a lot of the new stuff that's coming out, I personally use those for your tutorials and stuff like that. So you got a lot of really good content there.
Thank
Dan,
you.
y'all's website also has a lot, and of course I cannot avoid doing this, but the spot for Pardot too, right? Run by Sir Conte. Other influencers like Jenna Mobley, right? Have a lot of really good content. But is there anything big outside of people attending these user groups or any other community resources that you guys would like to broadcast for the world to, if you haven't checked them out, go check this out.
I don't think you mentioned Pardashians, but Pardashians is a really cool Slack community. So, I think if you know the Pardot, if you're new to Pardot and the Salesforce ecosystem, everyone's really friendly and everyone's there to help. And we have such a tight knit community. So join Slack groups like Pardashians. Make sure you're active in your Pardot user groups. People are there to help. Trailhead is a great tool as well. They're always coming up with new things and just to familiarize yourself with the different tech stack that Salesforce has to offer as well.
Yep.
I'll just piggyback on something I haven't heard anyone say, that is that, I mean, truly, if someone is ambitious, I say go for the certification, because it really forces you to learn that site. You really, start with that specialist, and you'll work through it, and you start to learn a lot about the system, especially if you have access, if you're using Pardot already, that's going to really give you some breadth and depth of the product. And then, of course, if you want to get for that consulting cert, and then, yeah, like you said, joining a user group, because that user group will often keep you in the loop of what's new and coming. So I think kind of those are two powerful ways to really bulk up your knowledge.
And, you know, I think a common theme amongst all this would be is just ask for help from people willing to offer it, you know, because it's certainly no shortage of that through all these different channels that we've talked about. A mentor can be a valuable tool to answer your questions and kind of guide you and point you in the right direction. Make sure you're asking the right questions.
Yep, 100% agree. Michelle, who's also one of the leaders here in the Austin user group, went ahead and posted in the chat Salesforce Ben for all of our friends abroad. That is a hub of knowledge, and obviously anybody can access it, but they are in the UK, so that's good. What we're gonna go ahead and do is thank all our panelists for joining us today. So it was great getting to chat with you guys. Hope we can do something similar again in the near future. And the only thing that we have left is some announcements. So for those locally or who are willing to travel, Texas Dreaming is happening at the end of April. And of course, the Austin user group, Pardot group, would be there. So feel free to message us on Twitter or send us a LinkedIn message or a text message, and we'll happily set up, some time to meet with you. Second, I commented on it earlier. We don't have a date yet. It'll be published probably by early next week, but we'll be having a session with Sarah Close from Circonte, who's going to talk to us through the relationship of Pardot and really everything Google, but focusing on analytics and ads. And then, of course, if you're interested in more topics like what we covered today, or just the trendy stuff around Pardot and Salesforce in the ecosystem, feel free to connect with us on the Trailblazer community through Trailhead, or on Twitter at our our handle ATX Pardot.UG. So with that being said, again, thank you everybody. Have a good rest of your day, and then stay tuned for our next session.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone.